Hi, my name's Camilla George. I'm a saxophone player and composer. I live in London. I was born in Eket in Nigeria and came over to London when I was quite young, and have lived in West London for most of my life. Um, I was really lucky actually. My first kind of big memory of jazz and saxophone was actually through my dad, who had the most amazing vinyl record collection. And every Sunday, as a kind of ritual, we would sit down, or he would make me sit down, and we would listen for, a good hour and a half to all of the greats. He had vinyls of Sonny Stitt, Cannonball Adderley, Charlie Parker, Coltrane, and he would tell me stories about each of the players, and it was amazing. I think for me, that was the real thing that kind of created this love of jazz. And I was really, really lucky after that, because I was obsessed with saxophone after that. And I remember my mum's friend had a saxophone. I think it was one of her boyfriend had this sax. He'd left it in the flat. She couldn't play it at all. And I came along, I think I was 6 at the time, and just blew through this saxophone and got a sound and was like, right, I want to play sax. I want to play sax. But it wasn't until I got to secondary school in the UK where I actually got to play saxophone. They had a music competition, and if you were successful, you could choose which instrument you wanted to go for. And I was like, yeah, it's got to be sax. It's got to be sax. So that was it. From then, from 11 years old, I was like, I want to be a sax player. And I was really lucky. In the UK, there's an organization called Tomorrow's Warriors, and it's run by an amazing couple called Gary Crosby and Janine Irons. And they really took me under their wing, as they have done with a whole host of jazz musicians that you guys have probably heard of, the likes of Shabaka Hutchinson, Nabaya Garcia. The list goes on and on. Moses Boyd. We all came through this Tomorrow's Warriors program. The program's free, so you're getting to go every weekend and have tuition with amazing players like Dennis Baptiste, Sean Toussaint, and it's just fantastic that is free. Particularly aimed, Tomorrow's Warriors, at helping younger musicians from ethnic minorities get into jazz, to really change the dynamic of the UK jazz scene, which wasn't very mixed, especially kind of in the 90s, noughties, when I was coming through. It definitely wasn't very mixed. So that was the whole point of the Warriors. And I actually met them at a gig there. They have, as well as a training program, they have established groups, and one of their established groups is Jazz Jamaica. And I went to see Jazz Jamaica play when I was 11, just got my sax. I met Gary and Janine, and the rest was history. And what was really poignant for me was a few years after that, well, quite a few years after that, I actually got into Jazz Jamaica and got to play with these amazing players, such as Dennis Baptiste, who I've mentioned, a great tenor player. And I really learned on the road. So that's kind of how I got into music. Yeah, it's been a good journey. Obviously, we've had the pandemic that has affected a lot of the industry. It's sad to see a lot of venues have been closing. I saw that Blue Whale's closing in LA. That's very shocking. Yeah, it's been a weird time, but there have been some positives for me. I have had more time to write. So I'd had this third album. I released 2 albums under a label called Ubuntu Jazz, and they were very helpful in getting my music out there. And I've been writing this third album, but I had struggled with the pressures of gigs and touring, etc., to finish it. So actually, I might be one of the few people to say that the lockdown really, really helped me. I felt like I just had more time to actually relax and write this album. So I wrote this album during the lockdown, and this album's called Ibio Ibio, and I'm really proud of it. It'll be my third studio album to come out, and it's dedicated to my tribe. So I mentioned that I was born in Nigeria. My tribe is the Ibibio people, and the Ibibio people reside in southeastern coastal Nigeria. And this album is called Ibio Ibio, which is a nickname for Ibibio people. It means short or brief. It doesn't refer to our height. It's basically about our efficient and quick way of doing things. So I thought, yeah, that would be a good title for the album. It's basically, the album is dedicated to our beliefs and our creation myths. So it's something that I really felt that I wanted to write about. It's a massive undertaking. I'm not going to lie, it was a bit stressful. We recorded it during lockdown, and it's a huge band. We have 3 drummers. My regular drummer, Winston Clifford, a drummer called Sam Jones, who plays with Zara McFarlane. And the third drummer is a guy I was really excited to play with. We met during a Pee Wee Ellis tour, which was last year. I think it was the last gig I did before the world blew up and there were no gigs anymore. And this is a guy called Daru Jones. He's a real kind of hip hop fiend. It's an amazing drummer, and I've been really excited to work with him. So that was a big deal. 3 drummers on 1 album, quite a lot to manage. I've got a rapper. I've always been quite really interested in hip hop and interested in rap, and kind of in its sense of rap and street poetry. So that's an element I wanted to bring in. And the rapper, again, was on this Pee Wee Ellis tour. There's a great young rapper from Birmingham called Lady Sanity. So I'm really excited to showcase her on the album. I also have a kora, really so in love with the sound of kora. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful instrument. And I was so pleased to be able to work with Senegalese kora player Kajali Coyote, who blessed the album. So yeah, that should be really good. And also, in addition, the musicians are racking up. I was really lucky to work with the horn section with Sheila Maurice Gray, the leader of Kokoroko, on trumpet, and Rosie Turton, a very, very talented trombone player. And it's just such a nice thing to do. It was actually the last thing we did before Christmas. We did these 2 days in the studio, which we weren't sure was going to happen, because in London, the lockdown situation was pretty tight, and we weren't sure whether, somebody might get COVID or whatever. But we managed to get this done. So it's something I'm really, really proud of. Now we're in the process of we've done all the recording things, just trying to get it out in the world. So that's something that I think was a positive for me from the lockdown. That obviously, so as I said before, quite a few negatives. For me as a player, I think one of the biggest negatives was I live in a 3rd floor flat. It never even occurred to me when I moved in that it would be a problem, because I practice in a studio that's 5 minutes around the corner. However, that studio was one of the first casualties in my area of COVID. And it's something that I think, as musicians and what I've seen on social media, I don't think people are so aware of. We know about the loss of gigs, we know about the venues going, but what's also going, which is really worrying, is the backline support. this place that I used to rehearse at, Bell Percussion, were one of the most infamous places for the hire of musical instruments. They provided instruments for the Brit Awards, for the proms, all the big concerts that were going on in the UK. They were providing backline for. They also had practice studios where they very kindly used to let me come and practice at all times of the day or night. So big shout out to them for allowing that. But yeah, they said that they, as a result of what happened with the pandemic, they didn't get any support from the government. So they are going, and they were saying that they were worried in their sector because a lot of the backline places are going, a lot of tour bus companies are going out of business, which has a knock-on effect when we do go back to gigging, because what will happen when we need to have, need to get backline instruments, when we need a drum kit, we need a keyboard, etc. Where will what will happen when these companies have gone? So it was something that really struck a chord with me, that they have been so neglected, as well as musicians, as well as venues, and how wide ranging the pandemic actually is. Yeah, it was quite a sobering thought, and obviously very sad that they've gone. In To get over the fact that I had nowhere to practice, I had to get this saxophone mute, which don't know if anyone who's watching has ever seen one of these things, but basically it's bigger than me and weighs probably weighs about the same as me. It is absolutely massive. And Yeah, that's been my life for the last few months, just practicing in this horrible saxophone mute. So I'm really, really hoping that I can find somewhere to practice properly soon, because that has definitely been one of my low points of the pandemic, I would say. But yeah, enough about that, because we could talk about COVID till the cows come home. But I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely definitely over it now. Um, Thinking about my kind of career path, and the decisions that I made as a musician, I think one of the big things for me was having mentors um, in in my life who really gave me such sound advice. Um, One of the most important ones, and I think in terms of me actually being a composer, being somebody that's touring with their music, was Courtney Pine, because in 2014 I did a project with him called the Venus Warriors, and the aim of that was to showcase female musicians. And we did a gig at the Hideaway in Streatham. That's also a place I think apparently that has gone, another venue that that has bitten the dust as a result of COVID. And I remember we were playing standards, and he just, a few of the other players, other musicians, had their own compositions, and Courtney just took me to one side and just said, you need to sort it out. You should be writing your own music. It's great to play standards. It's a really important part of your journey, but you should be writing your own stuff. And it really kind of shamed me into thinking, yeah, I hadn't put any thought at all into writing stuff. And also, I think I suffered from a lack of confidence in terms of, if even if I did write it, would it be good enough, and blah, blah, blah. So he really pushed me to write, and he'd always check in, have you written something yet? Have you written a tune yet? Have you done this? Have you done that? And I really credit him for my first album, Esang, because he really gave me a kick up the backside, in terms of actually forcing me to do my own stuff and to have developed my own voice. And it's something which I really enjoy writing. I love the process, but I don't think, I think it just needed some kind of inspiration, which I got from Courtney, for me to actually put the wheels into motion and create and write something, write my own stuff. So he was definitely a really important person in terms of my journey. And the other main person, well, if there are a few, but another really important mentor for me was my saxophone teacher, Jean Toussaint. I think I started having lessons with him when I was 14 or 15. And he, I mean, obviously, Jean Toussaint, I don't think his name needs any explanation, but of our Blakey fame, a ridiculous tenor player, somebody who I was always quite scared of before. And he, we used to have these lessons. I used to go over to his house, and he just used to drill into me the importance of perseverance. And because I used to go get stuff wrong. I remember one time was getting really annoyed with myself. It was a technical exercise, and I just felt like I'm just not going to get it. I can't get it, can't do it. And he really kind of gave me a talking to and just said, you need, in this business, you need to be able to persevere. You need to overcome, in this case, as he said, it was my ego that was getting in the way. I was embarrassed that I couldn't do it, and then became flustered, and then just put a barrier up. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. And he really kind of got me to be able to see the importance of just going home calmly, going over it, practicing it slowly, doing it the next day, the next day, the next day, until I could actually, until I could nail it. And I remember with this particular exercise coming back to his house, and he was just like, yeah, see, I was right. And I was just like, yeah, you were. And he was a really hard taskmaster because he demanded excellence. And I think that, that was something that really did resonate with me. You obviously can't be perfect all the time, but you should strive to get stuff right. So many times I do something and make a little mistake and I'll be like, oh, it's fine. And he would always say, no, if you allow yourself to kind of, just bypass that mistake, you're letting yourself down. You're only letting yourself down. Nobody else cares. So it's like, you've got to make sure that, you strive for excellence for yourself. And that's something I've definitely taken with me on my journey, my musical journey. So yeah, Jean Toussaint was such an important figure in my musical life, and he's somebody that I look up to today and just think, I mean, he's a fantastic musician, and that is why he's such a fantastic musician. He is excellence personified, I think. So that was a great lesson that I got from him. And the other one I got from my Jazz Jamaica family, and that is the importance of a family bond. We always call each other family. We've got Uncle Harry Brown on trombone, Gary Crosby, and it is a family, and that bond, the importance of a bond with other musicians, is something that I've really learned through working with those guys. It's something that's really important to me, especially I've got on to putting my own projects together. I don't, obviously we always want to have great players in our projects, but I think having a bond with somebody is even more important. I think it's about going on stage with people that have your back. I feel like that with my band. They are my family. We go on stage because we have a mutual love for each other. I think it shows through in the music, and it's something that I really do find is very important to me. And as I say, it does influence the people I book for my projects, because that's, for me, a very, very important thing to have in terms of music. And yeah, if you're putting on a show, that I think it shows through, it comes through to the audience that you love playing with these people, you're happy, and the audience feel that the good vibrations. So yeah, that would be something that I definitely got as a good piece of advice on how to conduct myself, I guess, as a musician in later life. And looking back now, thinking, I've come through now, no longer, I guess, getting into the more experienced musician territory. If I were to kind of advise younger musicians, I think it would be along the lines of the stuff I've said. I think perseverance is really key. There are so many knocks. I mean, at music college, it was basically you'd go in and it'd be like a knock a day, or more than a knock a day. Sometimes, you go into classes and just be absolutely like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. Everyone else can do this, and I think music college is particularly hard. Everyone has their own different experiences of it, but I definitely felt when I arrived, it's like you're no longer just, you might have been a really good sax player in your little area or at school, and then you suddenly get into music college and there are millions of other sax players and they're all really good, some of them way better than my standard when I got there, and it was very overwhelming. It was quite scary, and just persevering. You might play something, and somebody else is sat next to you might play something much better, and you just have to keep coming back because that's what makes you a good player. And I think another thing, particularly I found hard in music college, was some of the tutors. I mean, we had some amazing tutors, but there were some who were perhaps not such great tutors, and maybe harsher, and quite critical. Um, Obviously, it's good to be critiqued, but there are ways of doing it, and I found in my experience, some of the critiques were perhaps not so helpful. And so again, the perseverance comes in them, because even though they've humiliated you in a lesson, you need to come back and show yourself rather than showing them that you can do it. And that's something that is, I think, was quite a valuable thing for me to have, as a younger musician, and would be valuable, I think, to any younger musician coming through, is just to keep going, because yeah, there will be knocks. There will be times when you go to jam sessions and it's awful. I'm trying to think of my worst jam session experience. I think it was when was playing, I think it was I'll Remember April, and I was first year college, so probably should have known the tune a bit better, but I got up at the Ronnie Scott's jam session, and I was playing and I got the form wrong. I remember the bass player he just yelled out, he's like, no, not like that. And everybody, because there was an audience, heard, and I was absolutely mortified. And it's just like, gosh, it's Ronnie Scott's. I've messed up. But not only have I messed up, this guy has actually broadcasted it to everybody that I've messed up. And it was a really hard thing to take. I knew I was in the wrong, and I knew what he was saying was correct. Should he have said it like that? Perhaps not. I think definitely not. But it was just, again, the perseverance to, when I went home, I was like, right, that was embarrassing. I really need to learn that tune. I've never forgotten. I've never missed up on the form of that tune again, because that was it was a real learning point, shall we say, in my career, for sure. I think that was a big one, and that's going to happen for younger musicians. Jam sessions, gigs. There, my first gig that I did ever, in my whole gigging career, was weirdly at the jazz cafe. I should not have been at the jazz cafe because I could barely play, but we were at the jazz cafe, and we were supporting Roy Ayers. And I remember getting up on stage. It was just like, it was so obvious that I was, you know, a bit of a beginner. And you know, the guys, the thing about it was that the guys in Roy's band were so nice to me. They were so encouraging. You know, you can do it. You know, you've got really great sound, but you know, you just keep going on what you're doing. And that was something that was really helpful to me, and something I think is really important to remember. Um, Obviously, there will be some musicians who will be harsh, and as I said before, some tutors that I experience who will critique you. But in my opinion, and my experience, the really great musicians don't behave like that. If they see somebody's, you know, beginner or you know, maybe at the beginning of their journey, their musical journey, they'll encourage them, because I think that really is what you do as an older, established artist. That's what you do. You encourage young players so that they feel, you know, they feel enriched by the experience. Obviously, you don't need to lie to them to tell them that they sound amazing, but there's a balance. And that really, the encouragement that I got when I did that gig really helped me, because had they turned around and had been like the Ronnie Scott's experience, I don't know whether whether I would have continued playing, because I was so young and so inexperienced that that would have had such a profound effect, I think, on me. So I think, yeah, in general, with the younger players, I would say, yeah, persevere. Another thing, really try and talk to these elder players. Try and get as much as you can out of them, because often they're quite willing to help. In that experience, you know, that instance on that gig, Roy Ayers and his band were keen to give me tips of what I should listen to, um, you know, books that I could check out, about jazz, about music that would help me. And I think the right musicians will always do that. They'll always try and help you. And if they haven't got time to give you a lesson, I think it's always worth trying to ask for a lesson. One thing I used to do was go to the sound checks, particularly at Ronnie Scott's, and then ask people if I could get a lesson. Because often with the visiting players, it's extra cash, and you know, they have quite a lot of time that they're waiting around, so they might, you know, they'll probably be up for giving you a lesson. And if not, even chatting to them is enough, I think, to get stuff out of it. We'll come to the I've only got a couple minutes left, but I can't go into full extent of how much I love Kenny Garrett. He's my absolute idol. And just having chats with Kenny Garrett, as I came through my musical journey, really helped, because he's really open. He was keen. You could ask him anything. You could ask him about harmony. You could ask him about, you know, playing with Miles. Like, he was open to. He loves music. He loves talking about it, and was just so helpful to me. Even, you know, without me having an actual formal lesson with him, just having the chats with him was enough. Catching musicians after a gig, maybe after they've gone to the bar, so that you're not in the person that's getting in the way of them getting a drink after the gig, I would advise, is a really good thing. I think, just in general, making yourself available to hang with other musicians, whether they be elder or your same age, and really trying to get as much as you can out of them, is what I would say. I think that is always the way for any musician to move forward. It's hanging with other musicians, getting inspiration, bouncing ideas off each other, and, you know, getting albums that they're listening to. I always love asking people what they're going to listen to, and, you know, what they're checking out, etc. And it's always quite inspiring to hear what people are listening for, etc. So I think that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening to me. And you can check out all my details on my website, www.camillageorge.com, and I will check your questions and get back to you. Thank you very much.